Welcome.
To the joy of code.
Hello, and welcome to episode 380 of The Joy of Coding. It's so good to have you here. My name is Mike Conley. We're going to be live hacking on some Firefox stuff today. I'm going to be writing more documentation. That is something that we were doing, a couple weeks back. We were talking about it. We took a big chunk out of it last week. We actually got some decent documentation to show up last week. And so if you're curious about the details, I highly encourage you to check out episode 379. And this week we're going to be continuing the same. I'll start by sharing my screen. Just give me a sec. There we go. Yep, it's episode 380. It's October 23rd, 2024. A reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I think I know what I want to do today. I think I know the documentation stuff that I want to get done, but it might not go according to plan. We might get stuck. We might make discoveries where we can't do the thing we want to do, or we have to change tack, or maybe we'll find something fascinating that will draw our attention for a little bit. And so who knows? But we're going to start with trying to add more documentation to the customizable UI component. And that's the first thing. The second thing is that the agenda that we're looking at, which has all these great links and handy dandy things in it, this is available to you. You can click on the links and follow along, and the way to do that is to find the link to the agenda down in the video description. If you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be over in the channel description if you're watching this on Twitch, and it'll be over in the details section over there if you're on Air Mozilla. And then as I update, maybe I'll add links or I'll add text about what's going on during the episode. This little spinny will spin, and then if you reload the agenda, it should show up those changes. All right, let's get started. So I haven't touched any of the documentation since last week. So the first thing I want to do is actually rebase, because there's been a week's worth of changes. So let's see what's been changed, and let's rebase our branch on top of it. So pull. Is probably a better way of doing this. Again, I'm still getting used to Git. So if you notice that I'm doing things inefficiently, let me know and I'll learn. Although, Git is so interesting at Mozilla because right now we're using Git Cinnabar to communicate with Mercurial repositories using Git clients, which is very interesting. Okay, so now I'm going to check out the branch that I was working on, which was it customizable UI documentation, Git checkout. And we're going to rebase onto Bookmark Central. Let's see if that goes cleanly. Danny Colin asks, are you going to revamp it with the help of interns, and that's why you're documenting it? No, not necessarily. I mean, that'd be great if we could clean it up a little bit. That is potentially on a roadmap, a technical sort of hygiene roadmap, is to clean up this component. Mainly I'm documenting it because we had an incident a couple of weeks back where people in the beta channel happened to get their toolbars a little bit scrambled up if they ran beta 1 on developer edition. And, that was despite the fact that we'd been fairly careful on Nightly to land the patch that ultimately did this. But I think what was clear during the development of the patch and the debugging of the issue was that the customizable UI component is very large, complex, unwieldy, and it needs to be simplified. It needs to be sort of adjusted. It was written, I think, in 2014. It started the first revision of it. And since that time, we no longer have Zool add-ons. We no longer have Bootstrap add-ons. We have a very specific web extension API for add-ons, and so a lot of what customizable UI does can probably be revisited, and it can be simplified and brought into the new era. So that is one thing we could do. I mean, there's just anytime you're going to do a refactor, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, in my playbook anyways, is before you do a major cleanup or a refactor or even consider it, is the first step is to make sure that your tests are up to date, your tests are in a nice state, and that you've got decent documentation. Start there, and then start your refactors, and start cleaning it up and moving stuff around. But Start with testing and documentation. That's a solid choice. I'm seeing a tip from Ocris. I use git pull and then this really sort of long command to pull all changes from the Firefox repository. This is what Ocris suggests. Git pull. I don't know what R does. All with tags, prune, and then recurse all submodules. I don't even know if there are submodules. Are there submodules in our repository? That's an interesting command. All right. Anyways, let's we've done our rebase. I'm going to build faster using artifact. Ocris says all gets changes from all branches. Tags also gets tags. What is recurse submodules from that command, Ocris? Is that something that you just kind of do out of habit for other projects, or do we actually use submodules in Git? I'd be very surprised if we use submodules in Git. It's out of habit. Okay. Yep. Makes sense. I mean, that's a heck of a thing to type in every time you want to pull. Do you have like an alias for that you use? All right. So one of the things we have now is the ability to do this mock doc, and then we rerun that command. Now I just remember it says Ocris. Wow. Impressive. It's amazing what software developers will put themselves through in order to get their jobs done. I mean, just look at what I'm doing. It's incredible. All right. So I always choose the wrong one. Index. Here we go. Customizable. We got this stuff all squared away and put in here. One of the things I remember we talked about last week was the panel multi-view class. We'd gotten panel multi-view put in there. Let's pull up the source code here. I've got a bunch of stuff open that's unrelated. Let's close everything that is not. Don't need it. Okay. Let's go to customizable UI. And we've got panel multi-view here. And were there parts of, there were parts of it that weren't documented. And maybe today what we could do is we could try starting to add some documentation to our classes for things that are that don't have documentation. This is interesting too, like associated to node. Is that in here? Associated to node is in here. Static for node. Do they? Yeah, the params aren't properly documented here. I'm surprised actually that ESLint isn't complaining about this. Mock lint outgoing. I would expect it to be like, hey, where's that param? Huh. That's interesting. All right. Well, let's add the param. Element node. Oh boy. Or maybe I'll just say DOM node. I think that's more. I was starting to deal with that last time as well. Yeah, it's more common in here to use DOM node. I think that's the convention that I've been using. Okay. Param node. And this is the, what is it doing? There's a map and allows associate an object to a node lazily using a weak map. Classes deriving from this one may be easily converted to custom elements, although they would lose the ability to be of being associated lazily. Okay. So the node to retrieve the associated to node instance for to retrieve or construct. and it returns associated to node. There we go. We've got some getters here. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep this running in the background. I actually don't know. I suspect that I actually have to run that every time, so maybe that's not a great plan, is to have that running in the background. Maybe I'll do a couple of these and then we'll rebuild. Okay, get document. So a getter. I believe what we do for getters, I've got some prior art here. Get. Yeah, you can just like the document, a shortcut to the document associated with the node, the document that the node belongs to, returns document. A shortcut to the window that the node belongs to, window global, returns DOM window. Get bounds without flushing. Yeah, who uses that? This extends. Okay, we can actually take advantage of, I think, private methods. And start doing this. Let's do a find and replace. What's it complaining about? It's not accessible outside. Oh, can I not do that whenever we inherit? Like private subclasses. Subclasses don't have access to private members? Ocris asks, am I documenting your own code or someone else's? I'm documenting code that I have contributed to. I'm documenting an older module or set of components that have been around for a while. So it's not my code, it's no one's code. I'm one of the, I think, co-owners of this code, I guess, but this is stuff that's been around for a while that we just need to like clean up. All right, so I can't use a private method here, which is annoying. Let me double check that that's true. JavaScript inherit private method. Can you inherit private functions? No. No. You can only do so within the class that defines the private property. Okay. It's harder to document a code you didn't write. All these hidden assumptions will be lost. True, but the person who I think contributed the most to this module is no longer at Mozilla. Hasn't been at Mozilla since like 2018. So any documentation is better than no documentation. And I more or less, I think I understand what this module is doing, and what a lot of these components do. So I feel more comfortable. Like if it was completely unfamiliar, yeah, I'd be a lot more careful. I'd be a lot less laissez-faire about adding documentation in being afraid that I would be misinterpreting what I'm reading or why things are the way they are. A shortcut to get bounds without flushing for the window associated with the node. Param element. It really should just be DOM node. The element to compute the bounds for without, to retrieve the bounds for without flushing layout. And it should return a DOM rect. Yeah. Okay. This is a pseudo private method because it's using an underscore because we want it to be used by subclasses. Please don't use outside of this module. What would be the steps to add documentation to an unfamiliar module? That's a great question. If you were tasked, if that was your job, because that'll happen in your career, is suddenly you'll just inherit someone else's code, or like you'll be responsible for some chunk of code that you never wrote. You're not you weren't involved in, and someone says this is yours now. Like if that will happen in your career, especially as you start working on more and more mature systems, and you know the people who originally wrote it might be long gone, and maybe you've even been brought in because they go, well, someone's got to figure this out, and I guess that's you. And so yeah, that's the gig, is like, okay, you've got this sort of puzzle in front of you, and you have to understand what it's doing and try and reverse engineer or figure out why it does the things the way it does, and how many of those things are necessary and how many of those things are not necessary. And so it helps to go through source control, you know, and take a look at the history of the file, and if you can, if there are bugs or tickets or whatever terminology you use, to sort of see the conversations that took place as various things were patched in the files in the chunk of code. If you can sort of like do some archaeology, that's what it is basically. What we're talking about here is archaeology, where if you're lucky, you'll be able to find more than just the code. You can find the conversations that took place for patching that code. Maybe go back to the very beginning when the code was introduced. Figure that out. Like, why was this code originally written, if you can? Like, is that encoded in version control somewhere? And you can read up on that and try and build this map of, okay, here's the reason why this thing was introduced. Here were the conditions that this team was under, and this might be years and years and years and years ago. And it's possible. I think this is a good rule of thumb. A chunk of code that is unfamiliar to you may do things that seem nonsensical, but withhold your judgment until you understand why it was done that way. Until you can try and understand. Sometimes people make a mistake and they made a choice, an architecture choice, and it wasn't a great one. But oftentimes, the choices that people make in the code are for a very specific reason, and it might not immediately be obvious. They may not have like the inline documentation to explain like why this is the way it is, but sometimes you can suss that out by reading through source control, the code review history, and looking at like what was being fixed at the time, and like the ticket tracker associated with changes to the file. And you can oftentimes, in my experience, put together a coherent story about why things are the way they are. Now, is that why? Should things continue to be that way just because, that's the way they've always been? Not necessarily. Times have changed. If you've inherited something, that's a good opportunity to revisit a bunch of assumptions. Like a lot of this file is not that old. It's a couple of years old, and it's using modern-ish things like ES6 classes, but customizable UI, like I said, is from like 2014, and I'll bet you there's some things in there that don't make sense in modern JavaScript, or they're like better alternatives, but they weren't available whenever the module was first written. And so now you can kind of like look at it with fresh modern eyes and say like, okay, well, let's clean this up here. Let's transition some of this to more modern tooling that other people kind of understand, more modern conventions. Like, instead of doing prototype-based inheritance style classes, you can use ES6 classes and private methods and private members and stuff. So that's how I would do it anyways, is you build a map create a document for yourself, and it doesn't have to be for anyone else, just for yourself, and just try to understand what it's doing and dig up, if you can, why it does it the way it does by reading through all that other history and tickets and version control and stuff, and like create an archaeological research document for yourself. And eventually you'll probably become the world expert on that piece of code because you're the only one who's done the digging around. Sometimes if you're lucky, you can find the people who had worked on it. Maybe they're still working at the company, they just moved teams, or they've changed roles or something, and you can dig through their memories and see like, why is this the way they are? These things the way they are. And sometimes even people who aren't working at your company anymore, you can reach out to and ask questions, and sometimes they'll answer. I did this exact thing. I'm sorry for being distracted for a second here, but there is a chunk of code in the Firefox code base that for a long time was really mysterious, called the doc shell. And I took it upon myself to try and understand what it was and what it was doing. And I kind of went through this process of reading through the source control history for doc shell and learning, why was it written the way it was? What's going on? Like why is this the way it is? And I don't think I completed the series, but I wrote a number of blog posts about it, and I came to some conclusions. But what was really interesting is that I think where's the next part? It's Travis. Original intents. The Wonder Years, Travis. Okay, so I found, like, I was going through the source control, and there was a person working on doc shell, and their name was Travis Bogard. No longer at Mozilla. Hadn't been for a year. I think they were at Netscape, at the time. So it was like old stuff. And when I was starting to blog about this, Travis actually reached out to me over Twitter because someone had pointed him at it, or someone how he'd heard about my blog post, and he was able to like help me get a sense of what was going on. Travis reviewed it. Like, let me see if I can find when that occurred. When Travis. Maturation Travis. I got some information from Travis over Twitter. Okay, looks like, so this is what he wrote. Looks like the general right flow as far as 14-year-old's memory can aid. Many context points surround. At that time, Mozilla was still largely in walls of Netscape. Many reviews and alignment happened in person versus public docs. XPCOM ideas were new, and many parts of system were straddling C++ objects and interface models. Zool was also new, and boundaries of what rendering belonged in browser shell versus general rendering were being defined. JS access to XPCOM was also new, driving rethinking of JS control versus embedding control, and there was a massive unwinding of the monolith and redefining of what it meant to build a browser inside a rendered Chrome. So that was kind of neat that like someone from back in the day was able to comment. So sometimes you can fish out people's memories as well and just like write it down as you learn this stuff, and then build documentation from it for yourself. And then you've documented the module. You've documented the, you are the authority on it at that point, the historian, a code historian. And then you're probably the best qualified to answer questions of like, should this still be the way that it is? And maybe we can change it and stuff. All right, let's keep going. So I've documented this. The bounding rect of the element. Okay. This is all nice. That's done. Okay, so associated to node is done. That one's done. Next up is this class. So this one is missing some properties. Or some params. And that's interesting. Args again. It's been a while since we've done arg, or like I think it was last week actually where I saw what the format is for args, and it's this, which I think is really neat. So let's go ahead and use that same syntax as well. Forwarded to the open pop-up method of the panel. Panel node. And that is not the correct type. DOM node. Panel node. The panel node that is to be opened. Yeah, there we go. And it will return some Boolean. What does that mean? What does the Boolean do? Returns a Boolean. Oh, this is interesting. That's not actually true. It doesn't necessarily return a Boolean. It'll return a promise or a Boolean. That's really interesting. Returns a promise that resolves to true if the panel is successfully opened, or rejects if the panel cannot open. May also return a return true immediately if the panel does not belong to a panel multi-view. Yeah. It does not contain a panel multi-view. Okay, great. I'm seeing that Sentient is typing. Curious to know what you're typing. Sorry, I'm getting lit up. Okay. Let's keep going. So that's documented, but it's missing a param. Param, DOM node, panel node, the panel to remove. What does it return? Nothing. Does not return anything. And then this is a static method that returns the element with the given ID. For nodes that are lazy load, not yet in the DOM. The node should be retrieved from the view cache template. Okay. Param document doc. The document to retrieve the node for param string ID. The ID of the element to retrieve from the DOM or the app menu view cache. And then it will returns DOM node or null if it can't find anything, right? Like what? That's the case, right? Like document get element via ID, blah blah blah. You get null. Yeah. Question. I've heard expert being thrown around, so was just wondering if it just means you are the one that are most qualified, knowledgeable about certain modules. Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you're the one who knows the most about it, you're the expert. And that might not mean you know a lot about it, but if you're the one who knows the most about it, then you are the expert. And you know, as the expert, hopefully you'll recognize if you need to go deeper and learn more about it. You know, if you feel unsure about the changes that you need to make, or unsure about how some part of it works, keep digging until you figure it out. Code is understandable. To be clear, it's sophisticated, it's complex machinery, but it is understandable if you break it down small enough. If you can reach the point where we're talking about like the gearing of things, and like in the end, it's just jumps and conditions and moving memory around. That's what programming is, and a bit of math. And if eventually you can boil it down to that, and you can figure it out. You can figure it out. It's just that we build such large, complicated systems with these small primitives that that can be overwhelming. But if you zoom in your focus, you can figure it out, and then zoom out, and slowly you will build up your mental model until it matches as close to reality as possible. The found DOM node, or null if no a node was found with that ID. Okay. Ensure unload handler registered. Okay. Param DOM window. The window to add the unload handler to no return or no return value. Code is understandable. The problem is the human in front of the screen. There's a book I read when I was in high school. I think I was in high school. I'm not much of a new age guy, but this book was kind of new agey philosophy book. It was called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And the don't be put off by the title. You know, it's actually a pretty decent book. It's Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig, I think his name is. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Is it Pirsig? Robert M. Pirsig. And, you know, there were some... I found that the latter half was the hardest part to get through, but the first half was really, really interesting. In particular about... the author taught... It's like a narrative about a portion of the author's life. I think it's true. I think the story is true. I think it's a semi-autobiographical. And he talks a little bit about maintaining his motorcycle and what it is to him, what it feels like. And I remember reading that, and it really resonated with me because, like, what he talks about is coming to equilibrium with the thing that he's working on, with his motorcycle, where, you know, his motorcycle is in a state, he is in a state, he interacts with his motorcycle, and the goal is to reach a steady state where the motorcycle is feeding information into him as he's working on it, and he's feeding information and making changes to the motorcycle, and eventually they should reach some kind of steady state. That's the goal. And that's the way I kind of model working with software as well, is, you know, it's kind of talking to you, and it changes you while you read it, and then you change it. It's a conversation, in the same way that reading a book is a little bit of a conversation. Like, it's a book that you're also editing at the same time. Because, yeah, you don't normally cross out and change parts of a book that you're reading. But, yeah, the tool shapes the hand, and then the hand shapes the tool, etc. So, it's understandable. It's mutable. It's plastic. It's not to be feared. Okay. Returns the parent element of the associated node. Parent element of the panel multiview, which should be a panel. Now, does something inherit from panel multiview? Extends panel multiview? No. And what uses this dot panel? See, this I think we could probably use the private member. Okay. This could be private. Let's see. Panel. Nice. Where was I? Unload. Get panel. Yeah. Transitioning is another one. I'll bet you we can make this private. Sets the transitioning attribute of the panel multi-view to true. Sets the transitioning attribute of the panel multi-view. Param, boolean, val. If true, sets the attribute to true. If false, removes the attribute. And so who's using transitioning? 3 usages. Okay. Screen Manager. Sinchint's been typing for a while. I'm very curious to know what you're going to write. It's a long novel, maybe. A shortcut. See, this is maybe a little wasteful. Like the Screen Manager. Do we need to have a reference to this surface everywhere? Who uses? I don't think anyone uses this. Screen Manager. It's not used. We can get rid of this. Okay, connect. What does that do? Disconnect. Connect. I see. Connect. Okay, so this binds this panel multi-view class to the underlying panel multi-view element. No parameters. So also creates the appropriate child elements for the child elements appropriate panel multi-view child elements like the view stack container, the view stack, the view stack sets up pop-up event handlers for the panel. Okay. Disconnects disconnects this panel multi-view from a panel multi-view element instance. This does not remove any of the nodes created in connect, but does clean up the event listeners that were set up. This is interesting. It also removes a key down event listener. When is that key down event listener added? On pop-up showing, I see. Open pop-up is nicely documented. Sinchin writes, then in a code base as gigantic as Firefox, besides the methods you suggested, can you intentionally break things in the module to see how it works too, or would it be too slow having to reload the browser? I'm more familiar to a concept like hot reloading, which I don't know if Firefox has. I mean, can you intentionally break things to see how it works? That's actually a great way of exploring a piece of code, is to try breaking it. Just fiddle with it. Call methods on it from a console. Just, yeah, make some changes to see if it matches your expectations. You know, Firefox doesn't have hot reloading, but we do have mock build faster, which is, it doesn't take that long, couple seconds, then you restart the browser and you're good to go. There is something called mock watch. So for certain elements within the browser, let's see if it works actually. If I use mock watch, does that still work with PyWatchman? It's been a while since I've used this. Oh, I might actually, hang on. I might need a separate mock watch, separate one of the, oh, no. Deactivate. I used the wrong virtual environment. Okay, so that's running. And then if I go mock run here, and then let's see what happens if I like change some CSS somewhere, like browser.css, the big one, on Mac OS. Let's say, let's get rid of some rules. Let's break some stuff. I'm gonna just get rid of a bunch of stuff here and hit save. Does it manifest immediately? No. Okay, maybe mock watch doesn't work anymore. Or it's trying to do some stuff. Maybe if I like now open a new window, no? If I use Command Alt R to reload, yeah, then it fully, everything's super broken. Okay, so like that's one way of doing it, so you don't have to like keep hitting do mock build. You can just do mock watch, but you do have to restart the browser, manually reload it. So yeah, that's one way of doing it. Okay, let's get back to what we were doing. This is documented. This is documented. This is documented. Documented. Okay, so this one is not, and it's kind of pseudo hidden. Does anyone call it? This is a similarly named method, unrelated. So we can use a private method here. Slides in the specified view as a subview. This is a, why are these separated? The helper method for show subview that does most of the heavy lifting. This is synchronous. This returns synchronously, but may log an error if something may eventually log an error if something fails. If showing the subview fails for some reason. Private, the asynchronous Pronus private helper method for show subview that does most of the heavy lifting. Just copy that, and this returns a promise that resolves with undefined, I guess. Yeah, undefined. Returns a promise that resolves when attempting to show the subview completes. I mean, it seems strange. I guess something in here could theoretically throw. There's a finally down here. Okay. All right, so that's done. Next up, go back. This is similar in that, like, you've got a navigates backwards. This is the who calls go back. Panel multi-view. Yeah, there's one consumer. The promise undefined. The asynchronous helper method for go back that does most of the heavy lifting. I actually think that JSDoc is going to be upset by this, if I remember correctly. But let's see. The fact that we've got like a private method that is named the same way as a public one, I suspect it's going to complain. But we can actually test that right now. Resolves when going back, when attempting to go back completes. Let's see what mockdoc does. Oh, it's fine with it. Okay. Go back. It doesn't show the private one, but maybe that's okay. Panel multi-view. It's supposed to also show the private members. But it's not. That's maybe, I guess that's fine. Show main view. Who uses that? Yeah, just the one place. In that case, we'll use a private. Prepares the main view before showing the panel. Sounds great. But it does return something. Returns Boolean. Returns true if showing the main view succeeds. False otherwise. Or I guess that's implied. All right. Open view. Needs, it's missing a param. DOM node, panel view. The panel view element to show. Now open view. should also be private. Very nice. Activate view. Let's run this and see what it says. Yeah, I guess I'm working on like private things. So, oh, move out kids. Transition views. Activate view. Yeah, I think I'm working my way basically through these private methods, and they're going away, which is maybe fine because this is not the sort of thing like for documentation for consumers. You don't necessarily want them to know about the private methods. For people who are working on the code, who have the code open, you might want them to know about the private methods. So I'm okay with it. I know that almost contradicts, like, why am I putting in private members here? I don't know. I don't think it's that bad a thing that the private members aren't being documented or like being omitted in the source docs. I don't think that's that bad a thing. Okay, param. DOM node panel view, the panel view to be activated. Does not return anything. Close latest view. Close the most recent panel view and raise the view hiding event. Okay. That seems fine. Closes all the views that are currently open. Transition views. I guess I should double check, make sure no one's calling that externally. Yeah. Transition views. Because that's the thing, like all of these like little pseudo private methods could be test frameworks that are, or tests that are poking in and calling them, breaking encapsulation, which isn't, it's a code smell. Okay, transition views. That all looks good. Next up, clean up transition. Where are we? I think we gotta be almost done, right? Attempt to clean up property. Yeah, okay, sounds good. Clean up transition phase. No one using it outside. No one using it outside. Handle event. This one's public. I'm going to say centralized event handler for this panel multi-view. The associated panel multi-view. Param event. The event being handled returns nothing. Unexpected lexical declaration. Yeah, okay, so these should probably be inside of blocks. And then panel view, extends associated to node. See, what's interesting is that panel view associated to node, it predates customizable, like custom elements. So there's like this sort of there might be an opportunity to like have panel multi-view be a custom element and move this logic out of a module and into like a custom element. Because this was all written in the transition from XBL to custom elements, and I don't think we had the right support for a custom element of this sophistication at the time. Maybe we do now. All right. Indicates whether the view is open in the specified panel multi-view object. DOM node panel multi-view. The panel multi-view. It's not the object. This dot node panel multi-view equals panel multi-view. No. Oh, it is the object. So it's panel multi-view. The panel multi-view instance to check. It returns a Boolean true. If the view is open in the specified panel multi-view object. Panel view. Set main view. The main view attribute is set. Okay. Param. Boolean value true to indicate that this panel view is the main view. Set visible param Boolean value true to set the visible this true to set the main view attribute to true, otherwise removes the attribute. And then down here, true to set the visible attribute to true, otherwise removes the attribute. And sets active and focus when active to false. Okay. Okay, param. This is a number value. Sets the min and max width of the element to value pix. Okay. Max, min max height. Min max height of the element. Meanwhile, it just occurs to me that we need to add panel view to this list. So that'll regenerate. So now, yeah, look at all this stuff. Yay! Hooray! Move out kids. Did I forget to... Oh, it needs to be called externally from the static method. Can I do that from the static? Maybe I can. Move out kids. Can I do that? Yeah. Can't. This is pseudo private with the underscore so that the static remove pop-up method can call it. Header with the given title removes if the title is empty. Param string value. The header to set. The header is an H1 element. How does this work? If a panel header, if an element matching panel header is found in the panel view, then this one will then this one will, and this method will attempt to set the text content of the first H1 span underneath that panel header. To value. If header has custom header value. If has custom header or main view with header. Oof, this is complicated. If a header doesn't and shouldn't exist, only create it if needed, if not value. Otherwise, this will attempt to insert a header element and a separator beneath it with the text of the header set to value. If value is null, then these elements are cleared and removed, I think. Yeah. It's very complicated. Create header back button. Okay. Dispatch. Let's make sure that's the correct one. Okay, so we've got another ... args. Let's go back and see what that's like. Also make sure the correct method is called on customizable widget. Params additional dispatches a custom event on the panel view, and also make sure that the correct method is called on customizable. It's called correct. If applicable. Additional arguments to be forwarded to the dispatch method of associated to class, or associated to node rather. So maybe I'll do C associated to node dot dispatch custom event. Is that how that works? C. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if that reference works. See also. Yeah. There you go. Very nice. Populates the known width and known height properties with the current dimensions view. Sounds good. No params. Okay. Is navigable with tab only. Who calls that? Panel view. Panel view. Just panel view. And no one outside. Yeah. Oh, so we're gonna have to update that. Ext browser action. Ext browser action. I guess there's multiple. Okay. Is navigable with tab only. Whether an element can be navigated to with tab, shift tab, not the arrow keys. Param element. The element to check for navigation. With tab only returns a Boolean. True if the element can only be navigated with tab / shift tab. Okay. Make a tree walker. Oof, my back. How are we doing here, folks? It's 2:13. Let me just see, make sure that I'm still on track here. Very good, very good, very good. Okay. Okay. Make navigable tree walker. Who calls that? No one outside. Still in panel view. Okay, so this can be private. Arrow key of true elements only navigable with tab are excluded. And does this return the tree walker? Yeah, it returns a tree walker. Tree walker. Is that the type tree walker? Yeah. The created tree walker. Get a tree walker which finds elements navigable with tab shift tab. So this one's used outside. So I can't just this currently uses a pseudo. This is currently pseudo private with the underscore because accessibility utils.js appears to be accessing this. Returns tree walker. The tree walker for tab, shift tab navigation. Navigable elements. Get a tree walk which finds elements navigable with up and down arrow keys. I presume this is similar, that there will be a reference to this. Oh, no. Okay, so I can make this one private. I have to be careful. What is this? Okay, hold on. Arrow navigable walker is null. Stop. There you go, and then this. We're going to say if there are any callers of that, then they can use this. Oh. Should have been this. My bad. And I think we can do the same thing here. Tab navigable walker. Use this. For arrow navigable, arrow key navigable elements. Element that's currently selected with the keyboard or null if no element is selected. Since it can become null or undefined at any time. Returns DOM node or null. The selected element. Or null if no element selected. Okay. Currently selected element holds onto, this is a creates a weak reference for that. Sets the currently selected element holding a weak reference for it. Let's to it. Ram DOM node value the selected element. I guess it could also be null or null if no element is selected. Okay. These need to be updated. False. Skip back. False. And key. False. Arrow key. False. Selection. Okay. The key event to process, to potentially perform navigation for. Okay. Focus selected key, that's the default is false. All right, I feel pretty good about that. Let's reload. Oh, doesn't like something. What does it not like? Your code contains multiple documented objects at each of these paths. We don't know which one you're talking about. Selected element. Ah. A getter and a setter. What is the pattern here? It wants me to just use type. Huh. Setter. Oh, I see. You should only do one of them. Okay. Works for me. Okay. Look at that. Look. Nice documentation. All right. Let's lint that. I'm pretty happy with that. It'd be good to test. Are there tests for panel multi-view? I suspect there are. Panel multi-view. Is there a test? Yeah, let's run some quick tests. Make sure I didn't break anything. So it likes that. Focus. We'll do all of them. Keyboard. And then these two. This is the last one. I would have been so surprised. I mean, the only thing that really could have broken things was if I'd like done something careless with making one of those members private using ES6, like the hash symbol. But I think we're in good shape here. I think we can go ahead and call this done, or at least for this file. Yep. Okay, so let's go ahead and commit. What's the initial source documentation? I'm gonna just roll this into this commit. Git commit amend. Git status. Git add browser components. Git commit amend. Yeah, I am getting buzzed by a lot of people. I wonder what's going on. Add source documentation. Missing source documentation. Missing. This also makes some members and methods private that we're using sudo the underscore sudo private technique. Right. All right. What's next? I think now we start adding documentation to some of these other things. Like customizable UI, we should go through this and make sure that nothing is missing there. And then we need to do these other things. Customizable widgets, customize mode, no documentation in there. I think that's where the majority of our work is going to be, is in adding new documentation. But I think we can do that next time. We can start small. Like we'll do search widget tracker and toolbar, like these small ones. We'll do those. So let me hear. Great, we did it. We did panel multi-view. Fantastic. Next up, do toolbar context menu .sys.mjs. Do search widget tracker sys.mjs. Then do drag position manager sys.mjs. And then probably do customizable widgets.sys.mjs. Then do customize mode sys.mjs. And then finally go back through customizable UI and add anything that's missing. And then that'll be everything. All right. I've done that commit. I'm going to mozfab submit and say rebase, add some missing documentation to panel multiview.sys.mjs. And with that, I also have to include upstream. And with that, I think I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it there. I don't imagine we're going to be doing this for too much longer. Maybe 1 or 2 more episodes, maybe 3, and then we'll probably move on to something else. Something a little more exciting than documentation. But this is good stuff to do. This is just good hygiene stuff. And the joy of coding and the stream makes it so that I have time to do it. So thank you for indulging me so that I actually have time to get this stuff done. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought of the stream. There is a link in the agenda to rate this episode. I read everything that comes in. It's just a form. It's a simple form. I'm just going to drop the link into the chat in case people are there as well. Rate this episode. Link to rate this episode form. And if you scroll down any of the places where you find the agenda, you should find a link to rate this particular episode. Let me know what you thought. If you have questions that you want me to try and answer, or thoughts, things you want me to try and do or go over, send them in through that form, and I'll check them out. I might read out your question and try and answer it next stream. I read everything that comes in, and I read all your feedback. So I'm eager to hear from you. Operators are standing by to hear from you. All right, with that, I will hopefully see you next week, the day before Halloween. Maybe I'll wear a funny hat. We'll see. Have yourselves a great week, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.